This is the wiring for the camera and the digital transmitter. So here's the camera, and that goes on the license plate, ideally. This connects to the wireless transmitter, and then the wireless transmitter, the end of that, has got to go onto the backup light in my car. Now, I have a Toyota Tacoma pickup with a shell. So the tricky part is not really this wiring, which is really simple, but getting that wiring from the camera to the transmitter, and then from the transmitter to the backup light. So here we go. Okay, here's the back of my truck. As you can see, it's a working vehicle. I haul painting equipment, I haul gardening equipment. I've had 3 bales of hay in there recently. So one issue I'm going to have is making sure that the transmitter is out of the way and doesn't get knocked by stuff. And I think I'm going to end up putting the transmitter right there. You see I have a bed liner. I don't know how well you can see that. Where it's, I'm probably going to put it like right up here where it's kind of out of the way. Make this happen. I've laid out all my tools on this towel to make it a little easier. I noticed that the company has sent me this extra wire, which is nice in case I need it. They've also sent me these little things, which I assume are something to do with splicing. I think you just pry them open, but I'm not really sure how they work or exactly what they're used for. So I'm going to put them aside, because what I got was T-taps. I could not get 18 gauge T-taps, but I got 16 gauge T-taps. This will allow me to plug into the backup light wires without cutting the wires. That way, if I want to later move the backup camera to another car or whatever, I can just pull those little green things out. And I will show you how these work in a second, but first I'm going to open up the tail so I can get into the backup lights. YouTube tells me that it's just these 2 screws here and here, or possibly here, and they're 10 millimeter, and so they are. So I'm going to do that. Did not help me with this. I have a red and black on the transmitter unit, and I have a red and white on my backup light. I guess I'm just going to hook the red to the red. I'm about to put the T-taps on. Where are they? Where's my finger? There it is. Okay. So what you do is you just close these around the wire and crimp them. So I'm just going to put one around the red wire and one around the white wire. So I have split the wire at both ends, and I've stripped a little bit from each end. So one of these ends of each is going to go into the male of the T-tap, and the other one's going to get spliced onto the wire from the transmitter. Okay, so there's the T-taps installed on the wires, and they have these little slots where you can fit in the male part. Now, I was advised that the little teensy wire provided with the camera would not be big enough and strong enough to hold up to the male part of the T-tap. So you're just supposed to crimp that end there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to splice a little bit of the wire provided. Where'd it go? I'm going to put the male end onto this wire and then splice it to the thinner wire that goes to the transmitter. Instead, I see the wire they provided is just as thin as the wire coming out of the transmitter. Instead, I'm going to use some of this 16 gauge wire that I bought from Amazon on the advice of Song Kim, who gave a great demo of installing this thing on his Mazda hatchback. So I'm going to use this to go into those T-taps, and then I'm just going to use an electrical tape splice to get onto the smaller ends from the transmitter. Male ends of the T-tap, you just crimp, supposedly, this little end here around the wire. I found it very, very, very hard to crimp, but I got it, I hope. Okay, now I'm going to fit them onto the ends of here. They just go right in that little slot. And then I'm going to wire the other ends just with the electrical tape onto that end of the transmitter. Here are the T-taps connected. And I realized I needed a way to get this wire from the brake light into the body of the cab, or the bed. And I started to try to drill a hole through there, and then I was like, well, wait, what about that hole right there? I think that hole will work. So that is where I'm going to route this wire into the back of the truck so that I can connect it to the transmitter. I'm getting tired. Making this pigtail that I did off the wire, instead of trying to hook the camera right to the wires of the backup camera, of the backup light, was a really great idea because it allowed us to easily test the transmitter in a lot of different positions and to find that, in fact, it would transmit to the camera from under the car. So I think the takeaway from all this is that, wiring the stuff together is super easy, but figuring out how to get it into your car is the real art. Picking up on this project, we have done something a little unconventional, to say the least. I called my friend who works on cars to borrow a drill bit, and he is more adventurous than me and decided we should mount the transmitter under the car to avoid having to drill a hole through the car. So there it is. It's mounted to a piece of wire cable shield there with twist ties. There also, see those yellow things? That actually is a backup speaker that makes a noise when I back up, and we were thinking we could maybe have wired it right into there, but since it doesn't always work, I didn't want to deal with that. So we took the wire up through the cabling outlet into the car and into the interior of the car. Success. I have the monitor temporarily set on my dashboard because I've got this funny dashboard cover. So let's see how it looks. I'm going to, by the way, you can test the camera by putting it in reverse without having to turn on the engine. And no signal, don't tell me that. There it is. There's my backup. So when you're installing it, that's a good tip. You don't really have to start the engine and put it in reverse, because that's like pretty dangerous. And this way you can do it by yourself. So I am super happy with the backup camera. Right now I just have it powered through the cigarette lighter down there, and that's probably how I'm going to leave it. So, success, and I am pleased.